Good afternoon from Valencia. We are in EuCnC in Palacio de Congreso de Valencia with very special guest today. We have announced Bernard Barani. Welcome, Bernard, from the European Commission, and the chairman of 5G Colin Willcock. Welcome, Colin. It's a very great pleasure to welcome you and to join in this short but interesting debate about the latest 5G status in Europe. Bernard Barani is deputy head of DG Connect. Bernard, the 5G Observatory give us a lot of news about Spain, Italy, Norway and Germany bids and launch of new services in Europe. The latest situation about 5G?
Well, the latest situation about 5G is quite interesting from a European perspective. And first of all, thanks a lot for asking the question, by the way. What we have monitored in the 5G Observatory, which is an initiative that we launched about 1 year ago, is that Europe is progressing extremely fast in terms of implementing trials. We have about 180 trials which are implemented altogether in 28 nations. But if we take 23 member states, we have about 140, 150 trials which are running today. We have cities which have taken special initiative. For instance, here in Valencia, we see that Vodafone is due to launch a 5G network or 5G service this week. And what we see from the observatory is that we have about 35 cities now which are heavily committed in either trialing or implementing soon 5G technology. So that means that from our perspective, the target that we had set out in the 5G action plan back in 2016, the target being that we would like to have at least one 5G enabled city in each and every member state by 2020. We believe that we are well on track to achieve this objective at this moment in time. There are already a few services which have been opened in Finland, in Estonia, in a few member states. But we expect that this is really the beginning of a very successful wave which will start off culminating next year.
Thank you, Bernard. And we're discussing about the cities. In Spain, launched 15 cities. Obviously, Barcelona, Madrid, Valencia, Malaga, and so on. In Italy, 5, even from Vodafone, and bids in Germany for 6.55 million of euros for the frequency. But the point, Colin, is that during the EuCnC there is another very great event where 5G is involved, is a global 5G. Any kind of feedback from the other association and the situation about the 5G evolution?
Yes, thank you for that question. So on the Monday and Tuesday we had the global event here, which brought people from right around the world. So not just Europe, but from Japan, Korea, China, US, Brazil. And I think it's fair to say that it was a big success. The feedback from the people from Europe, but also from the other parts of the world, was that it was a very useful event. And it gave a chance to really understand the overall picture of 5G in terms of deployment, in terms of trials, in terms of future evolution. And that ability to show the whole world in a short period of time, I think that was very much appreciated.
Very short.
Well, a day and a half in the big scheme of things is not so long if you get the entire view of a technology which is very exciting and very much on the thing. And I think that was a success, and as I say, the feedback was very positive. And I think the ability to co-locate that with this event, EuCnC, was excellent, and it gave us a chance to show the strength of Europe and where Europe is maybe not the first to deploy 5G technology. What we've shown with these two conferences, and indeed the wonderful demonstrations that we have managed to put on here, is
the capacity, knowledge, and
exactly the research and the actual fundamental technology which is being developed here. Even if it's being deployed first in other parts of the world, it's critical that we have that infrastructure in research and development to have that technology in Europe.
So it's not a race.
I think it's wrong to see it as a race. The question is there an advantage to being first to deploy 5G? And I think that's an open question.
Yes.
And the reason I say it's an open question is a lot of the vision, a lot of the hope we have for 5G is associated with these so-called vertical industries. So not today's market, but things like automotive, media, healthcare, smart agriculture, smart cities. And for those markets we need features which are not in 5G at the moment. And so if you deploy now, what you deploy will probably not be able to handle the requirements of these new sectors. And so it may be that it will be a better policy, maybe not to deploy now, but to deploy a little bit later with a system that has those features. And maybe in summary to say, maybe it's best not to be first to deploy, but best to deploy.
For sure. Bernard, looking and thinking about last year in Ljubljana, you remember the EuCnC in 2018, and looking to this edition and obviously thinking about the future in Croatia, the European Commission is satisfied about this situation?
Well, I think we can say that we are very satisfied with the situation of EuCnC and also the co-location with the global 5G event, which has given us a very high profile in terms of global visibility of the event. So this is something that we very much like, and we believe that in terms of attendance this year we'll reach more than 700 registrations, which is even more than last year. So for us, I think this year will be a bon cru, a good vintage, as we say in French. So I don't see any reason to complain this year. The comparison between with Ljubljana is maybe a little bit difficult, because the overall sellout of the event was not exactly the same. But we can see that let's say the themes and type of activities that we promoted in Ljubljana have further amplified and are now well reflected in this event. As Colin said, it's interesting to see that we have so many demonstrations that are showcasing the capabilities of 5G in the context of verticals, which is, let's say, one of the aspects of 5G where the Commission is very much putting emphasis on. And also taking into account your previous question related to be the first or to be the second or to be the third, I think this conference really clearly demonstrates that Europe is on track to reach, let's say, the level of the full 5G level. That means the maximum capabilities of 5G deployment. Let's not forget that a mobile communication generation is about something like last 10 years, something like that. We have to look at it from a 10 years perspective. So to be the first one to deploy the technology, it's important, of course, because in Europe we don't want to lag behind. One thing which is also extremely important and which I believe is well reflected by this conference is that all the member states are on track basically at the same time. Because what we saw in 4G is that between the moment when the first network was deployed in Sweden in 2010 or 2009, about that time, and the moment when frequencies were assigned and networks were deployed in much more laggards type of member state, it took almost 10 years between the moment the first network was deployed, the moment the last member state came into this picture. And this is something that we would like to avoid with 5G. And we really want to create a kind of common window of opportunity for all the member states to try to deploy as much as possible in synchronicity, to try to create this type of critical mass effect and this type of cohesion effect. And this is something we believe that we are on track to achieve as well.
Thank you, Bernard. Colin, in this conference we heard very special claim and words working together. As Bernard just now said, it's important to create a common framework in Europe. And as a chairman of 5G AI, how is important this step?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, both at the European level, where it's absolutely vital that we try and create an ecosystem that's available to all the partners, and that we mobilize that innovation potential in Europe. And to do this, we need access to this technology as soon as possible, which is what the joint program between the European Commission and my own organization, the 5G PPP, is doing, trying to provide that 5G infrastructure so that European companies can actually experience this, use this in an early way, even if it's not commercially deployed. So that's vital.
Yes.
But maybe it's also worth pointing out that beyond that, there is also a need for international cooperation, because 5G needs to be a global standard. And it's only by being a global standard that we get the sort of scale where then the economies make sense, the economy of scale, where the number of handsets or networks or other devices are then so high, the price comes down, and then it becomes commercially viable.
Okay, thank you so much, Colin. Thank you for your join this very interesting roundtable, Bernard. And we hope to discuss again and again and again, because we have a lot of challenge in the next future about 5G. Thank you so much, Bernard, to join us. And thank you, Colin, to offer us some interesting point of view about the 5G global here in Valencia. It could be a very interesting meeting for the international view. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you. In just 5 minutes, we will have a new host here to present cities engagement and neutral host business model. Thank you, and stay tuned in 5G city platforms. Thank you so much. You have the main challenge here.
Oh, no. Hi.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bernard. We will see you in Brussels.
Next. Always pleasure.
Yeah.
Always pleasure.